Kakadosh, Boker on, Masechet Menahot, Daf Yomi, Daf Kufchet Amud Aleph 108, says the Gemara, right? On Kufchet Amud Bet, it says, Barpada Amar. Barpada came and he gave a fourth answer. You remember we asked, why do you have 6 shofarot? The shofarot were like the tzedakah boxes, but they were in the tzura of shofarot, right? Because, like these money pouches that look like... yeah, they have it. So that's what it is. That's this. That's this. Yeah. I would tell you even more. I don't know if you've ever seen it. I'm sure you've seen it. In Morocco, many times they used to have the tefillin pouches, was a pouch, and it was upwards. It was not side by side. I don't know if you've ever seen that. I saw it in Gibraltar until today. They used to have the tefillin was vertical. It was not side by side. So many times it is a old thing. I don't think it's from Yoshua Binu. I don't think so. But you're right. It's walled from for a few hundred years. Yes, hundreds of years. But
when you were there,
no, we only did the 14th, so it's probably not from Yoshua Binu. They actually say that Gibraltar was the end of the world, because if they only discovered America afterwards, so whenever the Gemara says that it's the end of the world, so Ki'ilu, that's that place. But anyway, well, let's see. Says Barpada, Keneged Parim Va'elim. We're talking about the 6 shofarot are going to be Keneged the Parim of the Chataot HaTzibur, right? That got lost. And the Elim of the Sham Gizelot and Sham Elilot that got lost. Okay? Va'kvasim. And the Kvasim of the Sham Azir and the Sham Etzorah that got lost. Va'sirim, or the Chataot HaTzibur that got lost. Va'amotarot, right? And the leftovers monies of the Korbanot. Va'ma, and the money for the Machatzita Shekel. Okay, so basically what happens is this is another reason why we have 6 shofarot. Okay, 6 different types of shofars. Here in the footnote, he brings down all the different, the ones that got lost and so on and so forth. Fine. So he comes and he says this. Kulu, 108, yes. Kulu kechizkia lo amre. Nobody says like Chizkia. Did you realize how many answers do we have? The last one that we just said was Barpada, because of the ones that got lost, the Chatot Tzibur that got lost. The one beforehand was the Ire, which is basically the different animals, right? That could be for an Olah, correct? Yeah. And then he comes and he said the second one was Rabbi Yochanan, because there's a lot in the Devot. And the first one was Chizkia, because of the 6 Batei Kiuna, Avot Kiuna, right? That they should always have peace, meaning that they all get their own tzedakah box. So therefore they don't argue between each other. So therefore each one has their own box. They just take their money and that's it. So the first one, Kulu kechizkia lo amri. Nobody said like Chizkia. Remember, what does Chizkia say? Chizkia comes and he says that it was because of the Batei Avot of the Kohanim. Remember, there's 6 Batei Avot of the Kohanim. So he says, Kulu kechizkia lo amri. Why? Latznuye lo cheshina. We're not going to suspect for how do you call this? Linsuya means that we're not going to suspect for fighting, right? Where else do we have this in the Torah? This word, v'chi yinatsu anashim yachdav. Yinatsu is linsuye, which is basically meaning fighting. We're not going to suspect, exactly, right? He says we're not going to suspect for fighting, right? So he says, right, linsuye lo chayshina, right? He says, dechol chad v'chad yomeh ka'avid, because each bet av is going to do his day. So therefore, even if you would only have one shofar, what do you care? Meaning like this, what are you going to start fighting with me, right? I'm on day 1, you're on day 2. Yeah? What are we going to start arguing for? You're on a different day. So I'm going to, even if there's only one shofar, right? So what do I care? I'm not going to start fighting between each other. So that was the first answer. Okay? Rabbi Yochanan. Why didn't they say like Rabbi Yochanan? So remember, what did Rabbi Yochanan say? Rabbi Yochanan was the one that said, because there was so many nidavot, and we didn't want the one tzedakah box because everything would become bad if there was only one tzedakah box. Yeah, with all the moisture and everything like that. So he says, we're not going to come and suspect for some becoming rotten, for becoming bad. We don't suspect zeire. Remember, he says that the zeire says that the shofarot were for the parve egel, ayil keves gedi v'seir, ki yechida lo mukmeh. He says because that's like a dat yachid, meaning that we're not going to come and say that this is going like Rabbi, right, in our Mishnah, because at the end of the day, that you could only bring a katan v'gadol. That's shitat yachid. It's not like Rabbanan. Kebarpada nami no amni, right? Also like barpada, right? We're not going to say it. He says motarot Kulu namu motorot. He says the motorot is the motorot. Ma'an nami, and the mana is also for the shkalim. Right? The Tanya was we learned in a Braita. Lehechal kalbon zeolech. Where does this kalbon go? The shkalim. These are the words that were made. Rabbi Lazar Omer and Dava for Nedava. So therefore he says Ushmuel Aman. Right? So therefore those were the four. Yeah. So now he comes and he says like this. Which one? We just brought down four different reasons, and why nobody says like those four different reasons. So now the Gemara is going to say Shmuel is now going to be the fifth reason. What's the fifth reason? He says Ushmuel Amar, and Shmuel says Keneged Motar Chatat, Motar Hasham Nazir, Motar Hasham Etzorah, Motar Minchat Choteh, Umotar Asirita Efa Shel Kohen Gadol. Yeah, he's going to bring the fifth reason now. So it was very interesting. I don't know why they did this. Did you realize what happened? He brought down reason 1, 2, 3, 4. They said, why does each person not hold, right? Hold like the other one. Shh. Please, I'm trying to give this to you. Yeah, one more time. You've got reasons 1, 2, 3, 4. And then all of a sudden, you still have reason number 5, 6. Yeah, so you have more reasons. But we stopped. Meaning, how do we start today's daf? We stopped after reason number 4, and now we started saying, why do we don't hold of each other? Meaning, why doesn't anybody hold like reason number 1? Why doesn't anybody else hold like reason number 2? Why doesn't anybody else hold like reason number 3, number 4? And then we continue, reason number 5. That's what we just did. Yeah? So one more time. Shmuel. Shmuel is reason number 5. So reason number 5, why do you have 6 shofarot, like 6 tzedakah boxes in the Bet HaMikdash? So he says, it's keneged the mutar chatat, the leftovers of the chatat, of the Hasham Nazir, Hasham Etzorah, Minchat Choteh, Asir Taifa of the Kohen Gadol. Kalbon is money. Yeah? Yeah, so yeah, they used to give a kalbon. It's shkalim. Rav Oshia comes and he says, another reason. This is not going to be the sixth reason. What is the sixth reason? Right? Keneged motar chatat, umotar Hasham Nazir, motar Hasham Etzorah, Motar kinin, motar minchat choteh. Now I understood why we're going to put these two together. Because do you realize?
You always give 6. Big shofar, right?
There's which one?
You always give.
There's 6 shofarot. And the question is why?
That's what we
And there's also 6 reasons now. All of them are giving for 6. All of them are giving for 6. Why do we have 6? So the question now, but they put these two together because I don't know if you realize. Which one?
You previously said it's because of each way of doing.
No, that was the first answer.
Okay.
Because of Batei Keuna, but then you had another 4 answers. And now this is the 5th answer. But
6.
do you realize? No, 1 second. So the 5th and the 6th, the beginning one is the first one. Motar Chatat. The second one is the same. Motar Hasham. The third one is the same. Motar Hasham Nazir. The 4th one is the same, Hasham Etzorah. I'm just putting them beside each other. Yeah? The 5th one is different. Because the 5th one, here is Motar Minchat Choteh, and this is Motar Kinin. The 6th one for the first Shita was Asirita Efa Kohen Gadol, and here it's the Minchat Choteh. So basically what happened was he switched Kinin with the Asirita Efa of the Kohen Gadol. That's the difference. That's the difference between number 5 and number 6. Meaning, now I understood why they put them separately. The other ones were just different reasons. So whether it's going to be because of the Batei Keuna, whether it's going to be because of Nidavot, or that you don't want them to become bad. The other one is because of the different animals that you could bring, right? So you bring different animals in the Bet HaMikdash, right? And the 4th answer was going to be for the Parim and the Elim, right? The Kvasim, Sidim, Otarot, and all these things. And then we kept on saying all these things about why did we go like each one? So we don't go like Chizkiah, we don't like Rabbi Yochanan, we don't like Ziri, we don't like Parpada. All of a sudden we have Shmuel and Rav Oshia. And Shmuel and Rav Oshia are in a different league. And I asked you before, I don't know why they did this. Why did they do it separately? And now I understood why. They're both the exact same thing. They're just changing one thing in between. Kinin and the Asirita Efa of the Kohen Gadol. Remember the Kohen Gadol every single day used to bring a korban. Machatzita baboker umachatzita ba'erev. Right? So you always half in the morning and half in the nighttime. But he used to bring a korban. So the Kohen Gadol always used that was the korban that was brought down here, the leftovers of that korban. And according to Rav Oshaya, it was the kinin. So says the Gemara, מה זה שתי?
למה כאילו, הם, הסברת לי לפחות, אני הבנתי שהארבע הראשונים, הם פחות או יותר קבוצה מאותה קבוצה, יש להם את המטרה שלהם, וזה הבנתי.
No, all five are the same.
לא, אני לא אומר לא, אני כאילו אומר...
Five are the same. They only change kinin.
ארבע ושתיים, לא חמש ואחד.
No, one more time. Right? Both of them have motar minchat choteh. The only difference is minchat kinin or asiriyat vaya. So therefore, five are all the same. It's only one which is different. Yeah? So therefore, he comes and he says like this. Now we're going to find out, okay, fine. If be'emet, so what's the difference between them? Right? Ushmuel, maitamalo, meaning, why doesn't Shmuel say like Rav Oshia? Everything was the exact same. The only thing is, he didn't have the kinim. So why didn't he bring down the kinim? Answers the Gemara, kinim tanele reisha. He says the kinim, the Mishnah already said it had a shofar miyuchad for the kinim. So therefore, when I come and I tell you that there's going to be another 6 shofarot, right, of nedava, it cannot be for kinim. Meaning, if I already had one special just for kinim, so then I cannot have another 6, and one of those 6 is for kinim. I already had kinim. Kinim was separate. So that's why Shemuel does not hold of Rav Oshaya. Rav Oshaya, right? So now what's going to happen with Rav Oshaya? He says, Rav Oshaya tani velo tani kinim. Rav Oshaya taught the 13 shofarot of the Mishnah, and he didn't teach kinin at all. Meaning like this. Remember that we had in the Mishnah that there was 13 shofarot. Right? That was in the Mishnah. Meaning if you go to the Mishnah says, I lost the place. It comes from the Mishnah and Shekalim. Okay? So, in the Mishnah and Shekalim, it says there were 13 shofarot. And then the Gemara said, the Mishnah there says that there were 6 shofarot for Nedava. Okay, 6 for Nedava. Now we asked, why did you need 6 for Nedava? Right? So we came and we said, let me see here, let me read it out. He comes and he says like this. He says, right, why is it, right, that you have the 6? So then we came and we started giving all the different numbers. So he comes and he says like this. If right now one of the other 7 was kinim, so obviously one of these 6 is not going to be kinim. And that's Shemuel. So Rav Oshaya, he comes and he says, no. One of those 7 was not kinim. So therefore that's why one of these 6. No. One of those 7. One of those 7. Meaning this is a Mishnah in Shekalim. If you take the Mishnah in Shekalim, right, the Mishnah there, I just don't remember if he actually brought down the entire Mishnah over here. Which one? There does say there. Yeah, let me just see if it actually quotes the entire Mishnah. No. It says like this. Shekalim Vavhei. Listen to this Mishnah. Shlosha asar shofarot hayu b'mikdash. There were 13 shofarot in the mikdash. Vekatuv alehem, and it was going to be written on them. Tiklin chatin shkalim chadashim. Right, so that was going to be on the first one. Vetiklin atikin. The second one was shkalim yishanim, old ones. Third one, kinin. Yeah, so it says kinin. Fourth one, gozle olah. Right, this is the olah of right the young birds, but for the olah. Number 5, wood. Yeah. Number 6, frankincense, levona. Number 7, zahav lakaporet. Yeah, zahav lakaporet. And then shisha lenedava. So our Gemara is focusing, what were those shisha? Which one? שקלים חדשים, שקלים ישנים, קינים, גוזלי עולה, עצים, לבונה, זהב לכפורת. Yeah? 7. And then we have the shisha lenedava. So what happens is, right, he comes and he says this. He says, we have this, huh? How do you have 8? The shisha lenedava is the 8 one, but it's not 8. It's shisha lenedava. The last one is 6 for voluntary ones. What's that?
I'm reading.
Yeah. Shisha lenedava. Shisha lenedava. Okay? So one more time. You've got shkalim chadashim, shkalim yeshanim, kinim, kozle ola, etzim, levona, zahav lakaporet. That's 7. Now you're going to have another 6. The other 6, shisha lenedava. 7 and 6 is 13. 13.
Extra voluntary offering of the device
is another 6. That extra 1 is another 6. That's 6. So now, according to, now we asked, why do you need 6? So the first one was, keneged shisha av batei avot. Then the other one says, no, keneged the shisha be'emot. 6 animals that come to the Bet HaMikdash. Then we come and we say, keneged the shisha, whatever it is. Each one is shisha, 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 shisha. Yeah, now comes the Gemara. And the Gemara says, I've got the motar, how do you call this? Chatat, Asham, Nazir, Metzorah, Chote, right? And then the Asiri Taifa of the Kohen Gadol. That was Shemuel. Rav Oshia comes and he switches. Kinin instead of Minchat Kohen Gadol. So the question is, why doesn't each one hold of each other? So Shmuel says, you know why I don't hold of each other? In that Mishnah, it says Kinin. One of the 7 is Kinin. So if one of the 7 is Kinim, Ribbono Shalom, why am I going to say one of the 6 is Kinim? Doesn't make sense. So it makes sense. So that's what it says. Shmuel Mai Tamalo Makarav Oshia, Kinim Tanele Resha. He says we already taught it in the Resha. We taught Kinim. So says the Gemara, Rav Oshia. Says Rav Oshia, Tani velo Tani Kinim. He learned it here in the Shofarot because he didn't have Kinim there in the Mishnah. Meaning Kinim is one of the 7, right? It was not part of the 7. So says the Gemara, what are you talking about? V'atani Rav Oshia, v'tani Kinim. But the Braita is coming and calling the Shofarot, and we learned Kinim also. So what's going on? Exactly. So he says, no. He says one of them was for Kinim, and one of them is Motar Kinim. One of them is for the bird offerings, and one of them is for the leftovers of the bird offerings. Meaning, just like you have, like, for example, we don't have their Chatat, right? But let's say you would have like Chatat and then Motar Chatat. You got for Chatat offerings. Okay, you can't do Chatat offerings as a you understand, because you can't bring it as an Nedava. But the kavanah is that a person cannot, basically what we're trying to do is that we're one of them is for the actual korbanot of the kinim, and the other one is for the leftovers of the kinim. So says the Gemara, Rav Oshia, why doesn't he hold like Shmuel? What if he would hold like Shmuel? Yeah? If he would hold like Shmuel, yeah, everything good? Okay. So he says, if he would hold like Shmuel, so he says, right, he says, why doesn't he hold like Shmuel? So he says, Savala Keman Da'amar, that he holds a Keman Da'amar that says, Motara Vasita Ifas, Shal Kohen Gadol, Yirkav. Meaning, what was the one instead of the Kinim? The Kohen Gadol. So according to Rav Oshia, the leftovers of the Kohen Gadol had to become rotten. You had to leave it to rot. So therefore, that's why you don't have leftovers. Meaning, it's not that you're going to put it to leftovers of the thing. The Tanya was learned in a Braita, Motar Mincha Lenedava, Motar Mincha Yirkav. Meaning, the Motar of the Mincha of a Tzibur is going to be for Nedava of a Tzibur. But the Motar of the Demei Mincha is going to be Yirkav. So therefore, because of that, he didn't want to hold like Shemuel. Meaning, Rav Oshia didn't want to hold of Shemuel because he says the leftovers of the Kohen Gadol, it gets rotten. You don't put it anywhere. So my Kamar, what does that mean? Rav Chassa says, Hachikam, I need to say like this. Motar Minchat Chote Lenedava. The leftovers of a Minchat Chote, it goes for a Nedava Tzibur. Motar Asiri Taifa Shel Kohen Gadol Yirkav. That's what it means in the Braita. Another explanation of the Braita, Rabbi Amar, Afilu Motar Asiri Taifa Shel Kohen Gadol Nami Lenedava. Even leftovers does go for a Nedava. Ela Motar Lachme Toda Yirkav. The leftovers of the Lachme Toda is going to be Yirkav. So because of that, right, there's no proof to Rav Oshia according to this, obviously. Right? That means basically there was just 2 different ways of how to learn the Braita. So says the Gemara, right? Now he says like this: Beplukta motar asirita efa shel Kohen Gadol. Right? This is the machloket of Rav Chasta and Rabba. Is the same machloket to do with the leftovers of the asirita efa of the Kohen Gadol. Rabbi Yochanan Amar says Lindava. Rabbi Lazar says Yirkav. So this is going to be the machloket as well. That means you have other Amoraim also arguing in the same thing. Okay? So you've got two sets of Amoraim arguing in the same machloket. So you have the machloket between Rav Chasta and Rava, and Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Yohanan. Yeah? Which one? No, there are other Amoraim. Yeah. He says you had, yeah. Why can't I find Rav Chista here? Here it is. Number 3. Here you have, look, here you have Rabba and Rav Yosef. So in Rabba and Rav Yosef, there's a number 3. You have Ula, Rabba Rachana, Rav Chasta. So you have Rav Chasta. Says Dor Shalishi of the Moraim. So now he comes and he says there was another machloket also between Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Yochanan. So when you go to Rabbi Yochanan, is over here, and Rabbi Lazar, Dor Shani, Rabbi Lazar. So this machloket in Dor Shalishi had the exact same machloket as Dor Shani. Everyone understood what we just said? Basically, it's like saying that there was a machloket nowadays, and the same machloket that we had nowadays was in the previous generation as well. The previous generation. No. Basically, they both held the exact same thing. They both. It's like for example, I'm gonna go. Okay, who am I? But kilu, I'm gonna go kilu like Rav Ovadia, and the other rabbi is going to go like Rav Eliashiv. So it's like basically it's going. Even though it could be that there are 2 generations, but whatever. Let's pretend that it's like 1 generation. So I think it was the same machloket. The same machloket that they had in the previous generation is the second generation. Yeah, fine. Okay, fine. Okay, next. Says the Gemara, Meitvei, so we're going to ask the following question. Motar shekalim chulin. Umotar ha'isita efa, umotar kinei zivin, vekinei zivo, vekinei yoldo, vechatao, v'shemot, motarin nedava. So says the Gemara one more time. We're talking about right now the money for the machatzita shekel, correct? So the one that's collecting the money and they're separating it for the machatzita shekel, and afterwards he found out that he actually separated more than what he needed to. So the leftover is considered chulin. So motar shekalim is chulin. Motar asrita efa, motar kinei zivim, kinei zivo, kinei yildot, chatao tashma motaren ledava. So says the Gemara, my love, motar asrita efa shel Kohen Gadol. When you just said now motar asrita efa, is that not referring to the asrita efa of the Kohen Gadol? So the question now is going to be from a Mishnah, meaning, remember one more time, Amoraim are from the Gemara. So you had 2 pairs of Amoraim for the machloket. You had Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar. Because remember, on the top here, you only have a few names. On the bottom, he gives you the rest of the names in that thing. So here you have Rabbi Yochanan. And then number 2, in Dor Sheni, takes you to Rabbi Lazar. Then you have the next one. You have Rabba, Rav Yosef, Rabba. But I know that it's always Rav Chista. Rav Chasta was always quoting with Rabba and Rava. Right? So here, Dor Shlishi, which is number 3, you have Ula, Rabba, Rechana, Rav Chasta. Okay, you've got the other ones, right? Or Shmuel ben Nachmani, right? Which is Abaye Rava, right? You got everyone here. So now, if right now, here's Abaye, right? So now like this. So if who? Shmuel is over here, and Rav Oshaya is here. They're the first generation. Yeah, but they're not arguing this. 1 minute. Yeah. So one more time, you've got Shmuel and Rav Oshaya, right? Is Dor Rishon. You've got a machloket between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar, and then the same machloket, which is going to be, how do you call this? Which is going to be Rabbi and Rav Chasta. Okay? So he comes, right, and he says like this, Rabbi Rav Chasta, and then you have the same machloket, which is going to be Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Yochanan. So it says like this. Here you have a Mishnah. If you have a Mishnah, right, that means now I can already answer up. I don't have a machloket anymore. I've got a proof from a Mishnah. What does the Mishnah say? Mishnah says the motar of asirita efa. So the Gemara says, is that not referring to then of the Kohen Gadol? And if it's going to be the Kohen Gadol, that's it. So I've got a proof that what? That it's not going to be Yirkav. It's actually going to be what? It's going to be Minchat Nedava. And you've got a Mishnah to it. So says the Gemara, which means that this is a proof for Rabbi Yochanan, and this is a proof. Who was the first one? Rabbi Rav Chasta. Rav Chasta. So this is a proof to Rav Chasta and like Rabbi Yochanan, and not like Rabba and not like Rabbi Lazar. So says the Gemara, lo, it's not true. Why? Motar minchat choteh. We're talking about the leftovers of the minchat choteh. Right? What does that mean? We're not talking about the asiri taifa of the Kohen Gadol. Right? We're talking about the asiri taifa of the minchat choteh. So therefore, when the Mishnah says, because the Mishnah did not mention Kohen Gadol, it just said asiri taifa. Now we know that the Kohen Gadol brings the korban of asiri taifa. So we thought it was referring to the Kohen Gadol. And so it's not talking about the Kohen Gadol. It's talking about minchat choteh. So says, which one? Exactly. But that motar asiri taifa is referring to asiri taifa of the minchat choteh, not of the minchat Kohen Gadol. Meaning there's two different korbanot. There are two different korbanot that are written that have asiri taifa. One of them is minchat choteh. One of them is the Kohen Gadol. We thought that when the Mishnah said motar asiri taifa and that it's going to be nidava, it was referring to the Kohen Gadol. So that's a proof against the other shita that says yirkav. Says the Gemara, no, there was some minchat choteh. There's no proof. Maybe it is yirkav. We're not talking about that. It's a different case. You can't bring me a proof from the Mishnah. So Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Mistabra keman Amar motar asiri taifa shel gadol yirkav. Says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, you know what? I think that it's going to be, right now, this, I went down now to the 5th generation. One after. So look, you had a machloket right over here between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar. You had a machloket between Rabba and Rav Chasta. Now comes Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, 2 generations later, and he comes and he says, Mistabra is what? Yirkav. Meaning he wants to be machriya the machloket. There was a machloket between, always there was 2 different rabbis. He comes and he says, you know what? It's mistaber more. The really bemet yirkav. Why? There's a braita. The time is we learned in the braita. Lo yasim alei hashemen velo yiten alei v'lo levuna ki chatat hu or he. Right? What does that mean? He says, he comes and he says, right? He says like this. He says, when I say, there's a braita that says that you're not supposed to place shemen, you're not supposed to place levona. You remember we already brought down that you're not supposed to come, right? You're not going to come, and you're not going to come and put frankincense or oil on a sin offering, because we didn't want that a sin offering should be nimtza choten iskar, that it looks good, that it's good. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda, says Rabbi Yehuda, when it says ki chatat hi, it says hi kruya chatat, ve'en acheret kruya chatat. Meaning, right? There's a minchat acheret which is domeh to the minchat choteh, which is a minchat chova, right? But it's not called the minchat choteh. Limed ala esrit ha'efa shel kohen gadol she'ena kruya chatat ve'teuna levona. Right? We just learned from here that there's going to be another asiri taifa, which is that the one of the Kohen Gadol. It's not a chatat, because this is the one that's a chatat. The minchat choteh, this is the one that's only called a chatat. The other one's not called a chatat. So therefore, if it's not called a chatat, what is it going to require? Levona. It's going to require frankincense. Yeah. So he says, right? So he says this. I already know in the Torah that it requires oil, but now it's also requiring frankincense as well. So says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, 1 second. From there, I still don't have my proof. Right? So he says, Mide'ena kruya chatat. Right? So the fact that it's not considered a chatat, so the motara yirkav. So therefore, the leftovers is going to go bad, because it only to do with the motar, it's not like a chatat. Meaning, when we kept on saying, right, all the motars and all the motarot and everything, it was like the motar of a chatat. Right? So therefore he comes and he says, the fact that we're going to come and we're going to say that it's not called a chatat, right? Because again, by the Kohen Gadol, it's not called a chatat. So therefore the leftover of the asiri of the Kohen Gadol is not brought as a nedava at all, right? Why? Because only to do with the motar, it's not like a chatat. So if it's not like a chatat, that means even though he comes and he says shukr chatat to the pasuk, right? The pasuk is megaleh that it doesn't have the din of a chatat. So therefore, you don't have the leftovers that it's going to be brought as an nedava, but rather yirkav. So this is a proof that Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak came and he wanted to bring, and therefore that's how, again, I'm not sure exactly that's what it sounds like, it's a maskana, but again, you had different machlokot going down the generations, and then you finish with over here. Okay, says the Mishnah. Mishnah on the bottom of Kukhet Amud Aleph. Shor ze olah. If a person comes and he says, this shor is going to be an olah. V'nista'av, and all of a sudden it got a mum. Yeah, imratza, if you want, yaviv the mav shnaim, you could bring 2 shvarim instead of it, and you could say, right, now you can bring the 2 shvarim, you don't have to bring 1, right, you could bring 2 shvarim, yeah, with the same money, yeah, fine. Okay, the Gemara is going to say that it could be even according to the Tanakama or not, okay, fine. Says the Gemara, like the Mishnah, shne shvarim elu olah. Whatever a person comes and he says that these 2 are going to be an olah, then he stavu, and then they became a mum, right? Ratza, yeah, he says, if Ratza, he says, right, yavi b'damav keves, you can bring a keves. Keves ze olah. If a person says that this keves is going to be an olah, then he stav, and then it becomes impure, right? Impure means that it gets a mum, right? Im Ratza, yavi b'damav ayil, you can bring an ayil. Rabbi Yosef says, no, you're not allowed to do so lechatchila. Okay? We're going to see. Okay? Fine. Says the Gemara, Kufchet Mubet. Says the Gemara, when you just told me that if it's going to be shor ze leolah, and then it becomes a mum, if you want, you could bring 2. V'amarta resha, I thought you told me the resha, shor b'mana, vevi shnayim b'mana, lo yetza. In the previous Mishnah, sometimes it calls it a resha, because many times in the Mishnayot, it's all one Mishnah. Sometimes in the Gemara, it splits it up to different Mishnayot. Okay? But he comes and he says like this. He says, right, when you're going to come and you're going to say, we said in the previous Mishnah, that if I come and I say, I'm going to bring a short on 100, right? And all of a sudden I brought 2 shvarim for 100. So each one was 50 each. I thought you said that. So why over here, all of a sudden you're allowed to? What's the difference? So he says, answers the Gemara, shor zev nista'av shani. He says when it became a balmum, now it's different. Why? Because the lashon nedava is on a certain behema, but once that behema becomes pasul, right, the neder is batel, and therefore he doesn't have to bring anything. So the fact that now he's going to come and he's going to bring 2 instead of it, it's going to be kosher, okay? Because it got a balmum, right? Fine, right? He now says shne shvarim elu olah. If 2 shvarim are going to be an olah, nistavu, and they get a balmum, right? Ratza, yaviv men shor echad, you could bring 1. The Rabbi says it's a sur. My time, what's the reasoning of Rabbi? Why does Rabbi say, one more time, the person now comes and he says shne shvarim, and all of a sudden he comes and he brought 1. It's not good. Why does Rabbi say no? Mishum dahavale gadol vevi katan ve'afal gav denistayev lechatchila lo shari Rabbi. If you remember, we said that it's a gadol and now you're bringing a katan, right? Which means that ki'ilu, that you wanted to bring a big korban and you're bringing a small one, which is pasul. Now, even though it became balmum, right? And again, we already said that a balmum, it's ki'ilu, everything is batel, and now you do whatever you want. Lechatchila is not good according to Rabbi. But the avad, you're right, but lechatchila, he doesn't like that. So says the Gemara, yes, veliflog nami bereisha. So says the Gemara, why doesn't he argue also in the reisha then? Why is he only arguing in the seifa then? Yeah, so he comes and he says, Rabbi akula minta pali. He says Rabbi is cholek on everything really, Bennett. So the rabbis finished everything that they talked, and then he came, right, and he argued, right, which means that it was only derech eretz, which means that he finished until the chachamim said everything, and only after saying everything, now you have the floor. So he says, Teida, what's the proof? Tiktani, because we learned, Ail zeolav and Isayev, that's keves, right? He says, Keves zeolav and Isayev, so we know Ail, for Rabbi Yosef. Again, Rabbi is cholek, even on that case as well, right? Whether it's going to be for the Ail instead of the keves, the Ail is more important than the keves, right? And he says also, the you're not supposed to do that. So Shema Mina, so you're right. So it comes out that Rabbi is going to argue on everything in the Mishnah, but he waited until they finished everything. And now that he finished everything, now he comes and he says, by the way, Rabbi Oziel. Fine. So says the Gemara, Ibailehu, so they're going to have a question. Mimina lemina mai. What's halakha if you're going to switch from one mean to another mean? Right? Meaning, I'm not going to do the same one, but I'm going to do 2 for 1 or 1 for 2. I'm going to switch. So, for example, he came and he said, right, shor zeola, and then there was a mum. Can he bring 2 elim? Because beforehand we said a machlok, can you bring 2 shvarim? And that was a machlok between Rabbi and Chachamim. Now the question is, can you bring 2 elim? So Tashema, we're going to try to bring a proof. Shor zeola v'nistav. What happens if you say the shor is going to become an ola and then it became a balmum? Lo yavi b'dam avayil. You cannot bring an ayil. Aval maybe but you could bring 2 elim. So there's a braita. The braita says mefurash, you're allowed to bring 2 elim. The Rabbi oser. Rabbi says it's a sur. You cannot bring 2 elim. Says why? Lefi she'en bilah. Because there's no bilah in the minchot. Meaning, when you come and you bring the 2 different korbanot, each one comes with a separate mincha. So therefore, since you don't mix up, since you don't bring the menachot together, bilah is to knead them together. You remember bilah me'akevet, the kneading of it together. So therefore, when you come and you're going to bring two elim, you're bringing 2 different menachot. When you bring the 2 different menachot, the doughs, the mincha offerings, you don't mix them together. So the fact that you don't mix them together, it's which one? Yeah, it's completely separate. 2 different menachot, right? And 2 different. So that means you're bringing 2 elim, and each one is a separate mincha. So since each one is a separate mincha, and you don't mix up the menachot together, that's why Rabbi says you can't bring 2 elim. Yeah, if you she'em bila. So says the Gemara, Shemami. Now we learn from here, right, that you could bring another korban, right, even though, right, it was nafal b'mum according to Chachamim. Again, according to Rabbi, no. But according to Chachamim, yes. Meaning, according to Chachamim, just like you could bring 2 shvarim instead of 1 shor, you could bring 2 elim instead of 1 shor as well. Okay? So says the Gemara, Yehachiv, so, right, my idia trey. So why did you say even 2 elim? Afilu chanami, even 1 elim, 1 ail. Da'an nista'av, the Rabbanan lo shalalu gadol katan. Right? Because again, since it became the balmum, that's why there's no difference. Right? There's no difference here. So why? Why did you tell me only 2? So he says, you're right. There's 2 different Tanaim in Shitat Chachamim. Right? That there's no difference to bring big and small. So therefore you can bring even 1 aisle instead of the shore. The other one says, no. He says there is a difference between big and small, lechatchila. And therefore he says, because of that, lechatchila you should not bring 1 aisle, but you could bring 2. Rabbi says it's asur. Lefishem bilah. Ta'ama dem bilah, only because you can't mix the menachot. Right? Yesh bilah, it's going to be shadi. So he says, Vatzram, we learned in the Mishnah, Ail ze olav nistav, Ratzah yaviv demav keves ze olav nistav, yaviv demav ail. Rabbi Yosef. So says the Gemara, also the same thing. Tre Tanaya liba de Rabbi. There's 2 Tanaim according to Shitat Rabbi. Also. Okay? Basically, according to the Tana of the Braita, Rabbi is osir to bring another animal only if the 2 minachot are separate. But if they're from 1 minchad, you could mix them together, it's fine. And according to the other one, Rabbi holds that you're never allowed to bring another animal. Okay, next, the teorim. Right, what about an animal which is tahor, right, that it doesn't have a balmum? Egel vevi par, keres vevi ayil yatsa. So stomach rabbanan. When we said that if you had to bring an egel, and instead of bringing an egel, you brought a par, or you had to bring a keves, and instead of bringing keves, you brought an ayil. Now remember, each one is the adult of the other one. Right, the egel is the child of the par, and the ayil, the keves is the child of the ayil. The keves is the first year until it becomes an ayil, the ram, which is in 2 years. Yeah, yeshecha. The egel ze katan shel apar, והכבש זה הקטן של העיל. כבש נהיה עיל, right? After the year. It's always כבש בין שנתו לעולה. And then afterwards it becomes an עיל. עיל זה משנה שנייה והלאה. And the עגל זה הקטן של הפר, right? So therefore he comes and he says, if you brought a bigger one, you're going to be tzedek chovah. So that is tamak rabbanan. Obviously that goes like rabbanan, right? That you're allowed to do that. That you're always allowed to bring a bigger animal. Okay? Next 2 dots. רצה יביב דבר שניים. אמר רב מנשה בר זביד אמר רב. לא שנו אלא דאמר שור זה עולה. But if you say אבל אמר שור זה עלי עולה, הוקבע. Now it becomes kavua. And now you can bring 2 olot. Right? Because he said alai. Alai means on to me. So once he says on to me, there's nothing what to talk about. So he says v'dirma alai lavio kaman. When he says maybe it would say it's a lie, it just means that he has to bring it. So he says no. Eleit v'anach. This is what he say. Arva Rav Menashe bar Zvid amar Rav. Lo shanu ela damar shor ze ola. Inami amar shor ze alai ola. Aval amar shor ze v'damav alai ola hukba. Right, then it's going to be mechayav to bring the one shore because of the value, because he said the v'damav. Once he said the value, that's it. He has to actually bring that value. Says the Mishnah. Mishnah in the middle of Kufchet Amud Bet. Says the Mishnah, Haomer, Echad mikvasai hekdesh. One of my kvasim are going to become hekdesh. Ve'echad mishvarai hekdesh, or one of my shvarim. Vayu lo shnaim. Now he has two of them. Hagadol shebehem hekdesh. The bigger one becomes hekdesh. Shlosha. What happens if you have three of them? Benoni behem hekdesh. Then the middle one becomes hekdesh. Meaning, if he only has big and small, the bigger one, remember, Yada hekdesh, Ayla Elyona. Hekdesh always wins. Always. Okay? What happens if he has three? So the middle one, Benoni. What is it? Says, I don't know which one I did. So then, Shamal Abba, right? Then you Deama, Hagadol Shabbat, then it's a bigger one. Says the Gemara, Alma, so you see from here, Magdish, Ba'in Yafa Magdish. Whenever a person is going to give a donation to the Bet Knesset, right? It's always going to be Ba'in Yafa. So when he says Matanat Yado, it's Be'mem Matanat Yado. Right? It's not going to be nothing. It has to be Be'met, in a sense. Some people come and they say, Matanat Yado. They think it's less. Matanat Yado will be much more. Yeah? So that's Matanat Yado. So he says, why? Hamagdish, Ba'in Yafa Magdish. When you're going to be Magdish, something is going to be Ba'in Yafa. So Ema Seifa says, when you have three of them, it's going to be the Benoni. So it's not Ba'in Yafa. It's Ba'in Ra'ah. Or Ba'in Benonit, at least. It's not going to be Ba'in Yafa. So Shmuel says, Choshinaf leBenoni, Telekatan Ayin Yafa. No, we do suspect for the Benoni. Why? Because it's not Ayin Ra'ah. Ayin Ra'ah would have been the small one. Since he said the Benoni, so it's Ayin Yafa klape the Benoni. It's not Yafa Sheba Yafa, but it's still Yafa. Okay? Hechiyavit. So what are you going to do? So Amar Rabbi Barav, he says, Mantin lo ad shiyumam. Wait until it gets a mum. Umachile kedushato v'gadol. And then you're going to put the mechaleh the kedusha on the bigger one. Okay? So therefore, even if it was going to be on the Benoni, it's going to come out to Chuli now. Okay? So now he says, Amar Rav Nachman Amar Ravua. Says Rav Nachman Amar Ravua. Lo shanu ela de'amar echa mishvara yekdesh. Aval ima shvara shor mishvara yekdesh. Hagadol shebehem. Right? Why? Torah b'torai kamar. Because he said, Ashor HaChashuv. When you say Ashor of my shvarim, it means the Chashuv of my shvarim. Right? The Chashuv of everything. If you're just going to say one of them, it's okay, this is one of them. Which one? Which one? The Chashuv of the shor. So he says, Eni is it so? V'amar Avuna, Parchia Mishme Deula, Hamelech Avro Bait Beveti. So again, the house of my houses. So it should have been the most important one, correct? Anyway, Mareo Aliyah. You're going to show him the Aliyah. What is the Aliyah? The Aliyah is the second floor. So he says, Lamishum de Garia. It's not because it's bad, it's inferior. So he says, no, Meulesh Babatim, the best of the houses. So Meitvei, they're going to ask the question, Shor Bishvarai Ekdesh, Vechen Shor Shel Ekdesh Nid Vachirim, Hakadosh Ekdesh, Vekulam Imakrul Tzorchei Olot. You're going to sell everything for the Tzorchei Olot. Udmahem Chulin, and the rest of it is going to be Chulin. So Targuma Ashor Shel Ekdesh Nitare Bachirim. It's only going to be the Shor of Ekdesh that got mixed up with the other ones. Veha Vechen Kamar. Here he said Vechen. So Targuma Gadol, it has to be the Gadol Shebein. So Meitvei, we're going to ask another question. Bait beveti ani mochelecha v'nafal mar'eu naful. Right? Imagine a person comes and he says he's going to give to him the bait beveti, and then what? And then he's selling it to him, and all of a sudden nafal, one of the houses fell, so he could show him the one that fell. So he says, 1 second, or the same halacha would apply to an eved. Eved shavadai ani mochelecha, and then he dies. He comes and he brings him the dead slave. Yeah, what's going on? Yeah, he's a very nice guy. Kuftet Amud Aleph. Yeah, ve'amai, why? He said, Lechze Eden nafal. Check where he fell, or check where the house fell. Had Eden met, which one died? Meaning, always get the best one. So he says, Lokeach, you're talking about Lokeach, a purchaser. Shane Lokeach, the Yad Balashtar al Tachtuna. The Lokeach always has the down hand, the lower hand. Meaning, when you're purchasing something, you have the lower hand. Hekdesh always has the higher hand. The Lokeach always has the lower hand. So hashta dati la'achi, now that we're talking about that, afilu te, maybe you're going to tell me now aliyah digriya, even you're talking about also the aliyah, which was inferior, yad barashtar, it's going to be always on the tachtona. It's always going to be on the bottom.